But we just flew this gentleman in from California. His name is Louis Morier III. He is also known as the comeback expert. Louis has helped many individuals who've been struggling, individuals that have felt stuck, individuals to take their lives to a completely different level. And so if you would please welcome the one and only Louis Morier III.
I want you to raise your hand, ladies and gentlemen, if you're the type of person that has goals, that has dreams. Thank you. Because today I want to talk to you about taking hits in life. One thing I know, as we all go through life, you're going to experience some hits. You're going to count some hits when it comes to your health. You're going to count some hits when it comes to your relationships. You're going to count some hits when it comes to your goals and dreams. And the question might be, how you deal with the hits. I think about one of my favorite quotes. It says, life ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep pushing forward. It's about how much you can take and keep pushing forward. I never forget the day, July 5th, 2003. It was a beautiful day. It was a gorgeous day to go for a ride. And so I decided to go for a ride on my motorcycle. And here I am, just 500 feet later. I made a left-hand turn on a two-way street. I was going southbound, another car was going northbound. I saw this car start to veer in my lane. And in my mind, I'm starting to have flashbacks because I remember in 2000, a lady ran the stop sign and she hit me. And so as I proceeded down the street, I overreacted and I veered too close to the curb. And as I veered too close to the curb, my back tire hit the curb and that made me propel off my motorcycle and I landed in a flower bed on the island. I'm looking up at the sky and I'm saying, Louis, man, get up. Get up, man. And so with everything in my body, I do get up. I even take a step. But then I fall right back down. People observing the accident saying, man, stay down, stay down. You have anyone you can call? I say, yes. Call my older sister, Tracy. The ambulance show up, they put a mask in my mouth, and they put me to sleep. I find myself waking up in the hospital, and before the bed, I have my family. My mom was there holding my hand as I opened my eyes. She says, baby, you've been in a serious motorcycle accident. I said, Mom, it's gonna be okay. I just wanted to comfort her. And out of nowhere, my younger sister, LaWanda, says, Louis, can you move your toes? And I attempted to move my toes, but I couldn't move. My family by the bedside saying, can you move? And my mom was there, and I went to reach up, and I went to give my mom a hug, but I couldn't move. Mama said, baby, stay here. Lay here, you've been in a serious motorcycle accident. You're gonna have to have surgery. And so naturally I went to the surgery, and the surgery was successful. I find myself back in the room, laying there, praying God, thanking God that I'm still here, thanking God He didn't take my life. And I get a knock at the door, and the doctor says, Louis, you mind if I talk to you? I said, yeah, you can talk to me, Doc. He says, Louis, I got great news. He says, Louis, your surgery was successful, but I gotta be honest with you. Because of your accident, because you breaking your ribs, because you puncturing your spinal cord, Louis, you might never walk again. Never walk again, ladies and gentlemen. And so I'm laying in bed, crying, tears coming to my eyes. And I reflected on the quote by Les Brown. And it says, sometimes in life you might be given a word, but it's up to you to accept the word. And so I had to accept that word. I told myself that I'm gonna do all that I can to be able to get in the position where I can walk. And so I left the hospital. And when I left the hospital, I went to my parents' house and I was recovering, I was rehabbing, I was going to the pool, I was getting therapy. And I find myself starting to get better. You know, Robert Schubert says, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And so I said to myself, I'm gonna be tough. In spite of all what has happened to me, that I know that I can make it. I don't know where you are today, ladies and gentlemen, but I know that you have experienced some hits, because I got some hits. But I said to myself that although I got hit, there's three things I know is crucial, that's essential for me to be able to get back on track. The first thing is I had to grab control of my mindset. Steve Duncan says, life's a battle for territory. And once you start fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. And let me tell you what that fight is. That fight is in your mind. I had to tell myself, Lewis, you can make it. I had to tell myself, Lewis, no matter you got in an accident, you still can get better. I had to tell myself, yes, the doctor is giving you the word, but you don't have to accept the word. Sometimes you're going to be given the word. You're going to get hit when it comes to getting that bill. You're going to get hit when it comes to a health condition. You're going to get hit when it comes to a relationship. But you got to tell yourself that I'm going to fight for my territory. The second thing that's crucial, that's essential, in spite of it all, you got to keep pushing forward. In spite of the situation that happened with me as far as the accident, I kept pushing forward. I kept going to my rehab. I kept going to my doctors. I made a point to start eating healthy, to start getting the nutrients in my body so I can heal. And I kept pushing forward. But there were times throughout the journey, I didn't feel like going to rehab. I didn't feel like going to the gym. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to tell you, I kept pushing forward. Why? Because life ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep pushing forward. It's about how much you can take and keep pushing forward. And finally, you can't quit. There were times where the pain started to hurt so bad that I just wanted to sit. I wanted to sit there. But I said to myself that if I quit on myself, that I'm not going to be able to be in the position where I want to be, because I had goals, I had dreams. That's why I asked you in the beginning, did you have goals, you had dreams? Because along the way, for anything that you're making a point to pursue, there's going to be an unforeseen circumstance. There's going to be an obstacle that come up. But you got to remind yourself that you can't quit. Why? Because it's impossible to stop a man or woman who will not quit. So the next time you're going through life, an unforeseen circumstance happens, a challenge happens, you get hit, you remind yourself, grab control of your mindset. Don't let your thinking go so far that you get away from yourself, that you're not willing to man up, woman up, deal with it, and keep moving forward. That's the second thing. You got to keep moving forward. Whatever you're dealing with, it's going to hurt sometimes. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be things that happen to you, but you got to keep pushing forward. And finally, you can't quit. Why? Because again, it's impossible to stop a man or woman who will not quit. This has been Lewis Moore reminding you, when life knocks you down, you don't have to stay there.
Yes, sir.